The Duck Fund. I was sitting in the back there when the Duck Fund was mentioned, and it seemed to me that I don't know what anybody was thinking about. You know, that we've heard of the Elks Lodge, we've heard of the Order of Moose, maybe there's an Order of Ducks. And, you know, like Red Green, we needed the basement. Do we start out with the duck call? But probably not. No, that's not the Duck Committee. The Duck Committee really stands for the Douglas United Church of Christ Fund. And it's a fund that is started a long time ago. And I want to tell you a story about how it started, who started it, and where we are now in relationship to that. I was speaking to the Comcast folks last night, and when I was done with our business, she was from another country, and I don't know exactly where, but she said, "Happy holidays." And I thought for a minute, I said, "What holidays?" And then I thought again, because I spent time in Mexico, and it's Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, remembering the dead. Well, then I thought about who I'm going to be speaking about today, Isabel Graham. That's the person who began this fund. And it's really like, you know, recreating her spirit here. So let's see where it takes us. I think you'll find this story kind of familiar, and I think a bit comforting at the same time. So it begins before. Isabel begins with her father, Hugh Graham. Hugh Graham was one of 3 people who decided they wanted to start another church here in Douglas. We already had one non-denominational church, and we wanted another one, apparently. So a number of folks went to meet with the existing church and to see if they could possibly find a way of meeting in the same space together. By the way, the other church was built and finished in 1862, 2 years before the end of the Civil War. And so when they both got together, they both found out both wanted to meet at the very same time. So that ended that. So we never got to meet in the building that is now our public library. In 1875 and 1877, the Congregational movement was very big, and we eventually became the first Congregational church of Douglas. And what's interesting about the church at that time is that it really made some careful and we think arbitrary now, but decisions that were commonplace then. You could be a member of the church, or you could be a member of the society. Guess who were members of the church? Well, that would be men. And guess who were members of the society and couldn't vote for anything? Oh, that would be the women. And they had to drag their kids along too, so there you go. Well, eventually that dissolved at the turn of the century, and we no longer, of course, have any of that, and it's a good thing. So let's go on to talk a little bit about Isabel. Before she was born, she lived, she didn't live anywhere. It was maybe a twinkle of somebody's eye. Her father started the church, and sorry, I can't get over that either. When she was born in 1873, and by the time she was 9 or 10, she really adored her father, Hugh. She really did. They had a wonderful relationship all their life. And she was here, watching Hugh, her father, and several others put hammer to nail and build these 16-foot walls, and to build that slightly crooked, slightly twisted steeple that is 60 feet above us. So she was here then. She went to Sunday school here. She grew up here. She graduated from here. And then she moved away. And she moved to Chicago. She moved to Cook County. And she stayed in Cook County the rest of her life. But she was a member of this church all of her life. And she came back every summer, like many of us come back every summer. So that should be a bit familiar to you, or will be some of you when you finally get a chance to do that. The other thing that's interesting is that she had a lifelong female companion. And so she had a close friend of the same gender. And that ought to be familiar to many of you. She got old. That should be familiar. Well, and she passed away. But she passed away in 1954, but before then, she was known as the Maiden Lady of the Church. And she was always called that, and she was here and registered from 1943 to 49. There's records of her name being in the church, and so I find it kind of interesting. She maintained her membership all the way through. After she died in 1944, she was cremated, which I think is kind of fascinating because it was an odd thing to do back then. But it's fairly common at this point. She's buried, her remains next to her father in the Douglas Cemetery on Wiley Road, 130th and 12th time. So it's close. What's interesting really is her will as well, because it's a portrait of kind of who she is and how she went about her life. One of the things that's interesting about her will is that she left a good part of her estate in the 1950s now to Planned Parenthood, a substantial amount. And that's amazing. That shows a forward-thinking woman. It shows a progressive woman. It shows one who is well-educated and came from a good church. She left a lot of money to her friends as well, to one of her loved ones, Nora Butterfield. And in the 1950s, in a report from the investment firm, there was a note that there is another couple, a Mr. and Mrs. Pearl Berg. Pearl, not Earl. Pearl. So we found out that Pearl is really Pearl and Maybell, and they were lifelong companions as well, and they received part of this gift. And so they were able to live out their lives and take part in the gift that Isabel gave them. And here's the third part, and the part I think that is perhaps even the most interesting. She left what had come to us as the remainder of her estate only after 21 years had passed since the death of the last person. Think about it. That is amazing foresight. Because what would you or I do? We'll give the money away, whatever's left over goes to the church. That's $5,000. You spend it on a roof. Done. Not Isabel. She thought about that. She knew that money would be nearly gone. And so she put that money back into the Northern Trust, and she said, we will reinvest all the dividends, and we will get this 21 years later, and you'll have a gift that's worthwhile. And so it is. That's what it was. So we got this gift in 1998. And we assumed control then. And we changed the name from the Isabel Graham Fund to the Douglas United Church Prize Fund. I'm kind of wondering now, in the light of duck references, we should maybe kind of go backwards and call it the Isabel Graham Fund, but that's another discussion. We had a couple of policies. We did a lot of research. George Brown, Max Madison, Carol, I, and a few other people did a lot of research. We found that any church received a substantial request. If they put any of those money into operational funds, regular operational funds, guess what happens? Doors close. Everything goes away. As soon as the money goes out, everything's gone. So there's no participation of the people, and as a consequence of no participation of the people in the financial status of the health of the church, there was no reason to come because we can rely on, whatever was there. When that's gone, nobody is used to giving. Nobody's used to taking part in these kinds of charities. So we thought we would be as smart as she was in some ways to try to do that. So no funds have gone for regular operational expenses. The second thing is we divided the dividends in half. We gave half of it away, and we gave the other half back to the fund to grow the fund. And now it has grown. It has all grown up. And so we give all of the dividends away, all of them, to charities. And some of those charities. There's the matching funds for the Croc Walk, but the matching funds can be for anything that is worthwhile for the church or for the community. So think about the hymnals. Think about the plaque for think about things like that you can approach the Isabel Graham Fund with. The other thing that it does, and of course you know this too, is it gives a good share of money to Christian neighbors. And the other thing it does, it supports the wider mission of the church. We look into how can we spread, the money the furthest we possibly can and get the most effect and most bang for the buck, and that's exactly where we found it. So that's why we give to the church's wider mission, because they do such an effective job. So, those are the policies. And there's another one, and I want to talk about emergencies, because every church has an emergency, and it's almost predictable in a lot of ways. It's just between pastors, you can see it. Going back to the history of the church, every time we were between pastors, we had trouble keeping these doors open, and we didn't know exactly what to do. And but we still made it. And we've had pulpit supply from Hope College. We've had pulpit supply from Reformed Church Seminary for years. I mean, back into the early 1900s. This is nothing new. It's almost a planned emergency, which is kind of an oxymoron. But we were really grateful for Isabel Graham to have the time the funds to grant us for that emergency time. With the retreat revision, the redoing of the retreat, Isabel has helped us to build another bathroom in here. She's helped us put on a roof, so those regularized expenses don't come as such a heavy hitter, when you absolutely have to have them. And I think that is part of her gift to us as well, the sense of security and not the sense of, jumping up and down saying, oh my goodness, what are we going to do next? So that's all good. And I think at this point, I want to thank those people who are on the committee. The Starakis, right here, George Brown, Mike Boston. Who am I forgetting? Who? Oh, thank you. Mike, are you on it? Yeah. Okay. What do I know? We don't meet very often. It's kind of dark in that dark basement sometimes. You can't see it. And if I've forgotten anybody, I apologize. Max Madison, I think that's about it. And St. Francis says it's in giving that we receive, of course. And the question is, what do we receive? And it's more than the money. We get the gift of continuity. We get a sense of self-assurance that in our best moments allows us to continually fall in love with each other. And that should be important, it should be familiar, and it should be comforting. Thanks.